So, you want to travel to the United States. Well, what do you need to be concerned about, even if you are a U.S. citizen coming back from, say, a business trip or a family vacation? Well, the Canadian government has recently issued a travel warning stating that U.S. border agents can and are searching electronic devices at the border. Now, not everyone, mind you, but depending on your job or occupation, there may be a slight chance you may run into some, and this was actually for Kevin, but he's not here, but I'm going to call it some imperial entanglements.
Ooh, yes.
Star Wars reference. You
Star
like
Wars,
that?
yes. Yeah.
So, what do you need to know? Well, we'll be breaking it down, just a few tips for everyone coming up. And related to that, if you're joining one of the many protests that are happening here in the United States and actually all over the world, there's protests happening. What do you need to know about potential police and government surveillance? So we're going to talk about smartphone security and some things that you should and maybe shouldn't do with your smartphone when attending a protest.
That sounds like a really good agenda.
It is. And joining me for this agenda is Scott Wright.
Hello,
Welcome
folks. Hey,
back,
Tom.
Scott. No Kevin today.
No Kevin today.
To talk about imperial entanglements, but it's okay. It's all right. We'll catch him on the next one. So,
need a comment from the Rebel Alliance. So.
That's right. I feel like Kevin is more on the Empire side of things. I don't know why.
Yeah, we can put that to a debate. Yeah.
Yes, we could definitely debate that. But we are here to talk about some fascinating things happening in the world, and I love this conversation with Scott, because Scott is in Ottawa, he's in Canada, and I am in the United States. So we get to have these lovely conversations about things that, well, our governments are both doing, I think, related to tariffs and draconian policies.
But we didn't start it.
We did not start it. Scott and I have nothing to do with this. I want to be very clear. This is our governments are all doing this mess. But it does open up a question of, like, in terms of travel, I've seen a lot more situations in the news about people having their devices confiscated at the U.S. border. Now, this is something I had always thought just happened in China and other, communist countries, right? That you would travel to, and it was kind
Banana
of expected.
Republics, you mean?
Yeah, banana republics. Yeah, that you're just going to get your devices confiscated because whether you look suspicious or just that's what they do. But apparently in the United States, this is happening much more frequently, and there are cases like in this article where someone had their phone searched and the agents didn't like what was on it, and they were rejected from coming into the country.
And to be clear, we don't want people to have their devices confiscated just because they had the Shared Security podcast on their device.
Right. It's funny because I just came back from London the other week, and I literally thought about that. I'm thinking, like, okay, well, what's going to happen? Because I go through global entry, and so they scan your face, and it's kind of a faster way to get through security. But for a fact that they have a lot of information, everybody that's coming through the border, like in an instant, so if you are on some list, you're probably flagged. And that's what leads to things like this happening, right? Where you may get your device searched, and you may get questions asked about, where were you?
Even worse, you might be mistaken for somebody who is identified as a threat, right? And I mean, that's a whole different thing than having your device searched, but the whole travel thing is a risk right now.
It is. So it is very interesting times we live in when other countries are warning people about coming to the United States that this thing might actually happen.
So where are we going to start with all this, Tom?
Well, I think it's just level setting with everybody that, like, this is just the new policy that's happening in the United States, and I'm not saying that you have something to hide, right? Or you are up to something nefarious in your anti-American government or what have you. But, like, I've seen discussions going as far to say, like, if you have, like, a meme that you saved about Trump and something funny, right, on your phone, like in your photos, could that be enough to get you deported because you're making, like, it may look like you're insulting the president, right? Or you have something on your device to insinuate, like, say you made a social media post.
Further than just having pictures on your device, I think one of our stories talks about people who had pictures but deleted them, and they showed up as, with forensic tools, they can identify photos that were deleted. And so it's not just a matter of, I better delete these pictures. If you have anything that you ever had on your phone that you think might be suspicious, then you might reconsider bringing that particular device.
Right. I guess you go into this like privacy rabbit hole, right? Like of how far do you go? Because if you go on Reddit, like on the privacy subreddit, and people are talking about like, before I come across I come to the US, like I wipe my phone like on the airplane and I reset it. So if they were ever to take my phone, they would just get this, erased reset device. And I'm thinking like, that's a huge pain to like delete everything and reset.
I don't think it actually deletes the data, right? I mean, I just did a quick search before this recording to see, like, because I'm not up to date on which forensic tools can do what and stuff. But basically, what I learned is even doing a factory reset may not be enough to completely delete your data.
That is correct. I mean, if they want to get the data off your device, they have the technology to do that and to do that rather quickly. So I don't know. I think it goes back to, you all have to do your own kind of personal risk assessment of think about what you have on your device. And it's not just your phone. Like it could be your laptop. It can be your iPad. It could be, your Nintendo Switch. I don't know. Like it could be things that could be confiscated that you have to think about.
Your watch? Apple Watches, right?
Apple Watches, all those things. So now I'm not saying that, I guess depending on who you are and what you do, you may want to reconsider traveling to the US, but I also feel that, that is kind of like a little too extreme.
Yeah, but I mean,
in a lot of cases.
I mean, I don't consider myself to be very controversial. I mean, even the things that I say on the podcast or post on social media, my photos, and there's nothing really that I'm worried about. It's just a basic privacy thing. But if I was going to go to the US, I would seriously consider getting a burner phone.
Yeah, and that is one of the pieces of advice that we do and others have suggested, that if you are paranoid about this, or if you do have a job or a profession, or you're involved in things that may be controversial in terms of like what a border agent might think of you, or what the U.S. government might have a record of, because they do have databases and they have other things that you may be on a list that you just don't know about.
Yeah.
So something to think about when a burner phone is definitely one thing. I mean, we've talked in the past about Signal as being something more secure, but keep in mind, if they have access to your phone, they also have access to your Signal chats.
Yeah, they can go back in your history or whatever, right?
So that doesn't necessarily mean that it's, more secure, because it secures the communication, but not what's on your device.
I think you could look at it from sort of a levels of risk point of view, right? I mean, as you said, if you happen to be in a high risk demographic, right, where you think you're likely to be more scrutinized, then you would probably want to be very careful about what devices and what was on them. From a non-risky point of view, you might look and say, if I have Signal on my mobile phone, does that give them enough suspicion to say I do secret chats with people that I don't want people to know about?
That's a really good point. It's kind of like somebody gets pulled over and the whole car smells like pot or alcohol, right? They have
grounds for
they're like, oh, somebody might be doing something illegal in this car. It's very similar to having an app on your phone that could lead to other things. That is an interesting point.
Yeah.
So it does lead to kind of like the talk about protests as well. It's the same kind of advice applies. The one thing that I have heard over and over, and this is in all these guides that I see, either if it's from the EFF or we're going to link in the show notes, this from privacyguides.org. It's called The Protester's Guide to Smartphone Security. And they mention things like turn off Face ID first and foremost. Always use a manual entered passcode on your device, remove all the biometric features, because there are obviously ways that law enforcement and governments get around that by like holding your phone up to your face to get it unlocked.
Yeah.
And there are laws, and I think I talked about this with Kevin on, it was one of the episodes recently, where if you have a passcode, there are some things that protect you, at least in the US, of giving away that passcode. So, and this has been proven in court over and over. Like there was that one case with the FBI, and it was like some terrorist's phone, right, that they couldn't unlock for whatever reason. To get that passcode was nearly impossible, right? But unless the person gave it to them. So I think that's one piece of advice that you should do, is not use any type of biometrics, facial recognition, thumbprint ID, all of those things to unlock your device. Always, always use a passcode, and a strong passcode.
Right. What do you think about the idea of having sort of secondary accounts for email or even a password manager to sort of make it look less interesting?
Security by obscurity kind of thing?
Yeah, a little bit more of a decoy than...
I mean, maybe could be something that you could do, but...
I think there could be a market for an app that creates a secondary inbox full of trivial information.
Yeah, it's all like AI generated or something.
Yeah.
Like based on like a prompt of
looks
like...
real, doesn't look suspicious, but yeah.
Yeah, make up this persona of me. We'll call myself Carmen Sandiego or something, and...
It's all just cat videos and
Yeah, exactly. A bunch of fake data. It's kind of like how people have been talking about, like, all right, before you delete your Facebook account, you need to like populate it with all this like crazy information and garbage about you, and made up stuff, and then see what happens.
The databases,
poison the well. Yes, exactly. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe that does sound interesting, but again, I'm very cautious about these security by obscurity things. They usually
takes me back to the Honey Stick project when I had the smartphones full of fake apps that people would go in and look at.
Yeah, and I think other advice like disabling location services, super important, right? If you're at a protest, there's the whole concealing your identity type of thing, because obviously pictures are being taken. There's surveillance cameras. This is easy to do these days, right? Like wear a mask, wear a hoodie, right? Like sunglasses.
Didn't Facebook solve that one like 10 years ago? They can do facial recognition if you're wearing a mask.
Well, I mean, it depends. If you're wearing like a hockey mask, like, I mean, good luck. But
I thought they had X-ray vision or something.
No, I don't think so. Okay. But so there's lots of things like that. I also mention from a communication perspective, there's been a rise in these, they're called like open source off-grid type of communication technologies. One project is called Meshtastic, which we'll have a link for that in the show notes, but it is a open source mesh network that you can build. Think of it like as like a walkie-talkie type of
point
network.
To point kind of thing instead of
point to point thing. They're low power devices, very affordable to build these, but it's kind of like decentralized communication that can't be intercepted or surveilled.
Is it just Bluetooth or is it over Wi-Fi or 5G?
It's all looks like to be like the one that I was looking at. They're all over Bluetooth,
right?
And the kind of more short range.
Yeah.
And it's encrypted, and there's other security protections.
Interesting, yeah.
So there are like these newer kind of communication technologies coming out that, because people say like, well, don't use your cell phone at a protest because the government likes to spin up these stingrays and interception devices that you won't even know, right? Like you'll connect to these rogue towers, and then they're intercepting your text messages and your phone calls and things like that. So again, especially in the United States, where we do have a right to protest as long as it is not violent and things like that, but it's always better to think about these things, again, depending on your risk profile, your threat profile, what you do for a living. All of these things kind of come into play as you think about should I be bringing my cell phone to a protest? Should I be fully out there identifying myself, and so I get picked up on surveillance cameras and things like that?
Interesting stuff.
Yes. Anything else you could think of, Scott, if you're just going to a protest?
I mean, it all pretty much revolves around our mobile devices. And like you said, sometimes we may not realize what we might be carrying, like AirTags. Would they be vulnerable? If it's your own AirTag, maybe not, but who knows, right? I mean, it's just something to stop and think about, obviously, when the rules are changing and and the world is not what it was.
Yeah. I mean, I've even seen people go as far to, like, if you want to bring a camera to a protest, they're bringing kind of those old style, digital cameras.
Yeah.
Or even you want to go full non-tech, they're bringing those disposable film cameras. They're kind of back being more popular.
Like our old dumb phones.
Yeah, with the where you actually got to take it somewhere to get developed, like the actual film, and then digitalizing those pictures. Yeah. Right. So there's levels of all of this, right? But I would just be careful.
There's one other tip that I saw in one of the articles that we're discussing that said to use airplane mode before you go through customs to avoid, I think it's what we would have called, was it slurping or something, where you could, the authorities might be able to connect to your phone and grab files that aren't secured without you knowing it.
I think that was around like airdrop, like allowing like unauthenticated airdrop requests and things like that. But these are just things like basic smartphone security that you should be aware of. And like I said, we'll mention that guide, a link for that in the show notes, but also one guide and one set of guides that we've always recommended is the EFF's Surveillance Self-Defense, which is a whole ton of great information on everything related to securing your devices, protest or not, right? Of very valuable information for Android, for iOS, for your laptop, all of those types of things. And the EFF is a great resource for that too.
Yep. Cool.
All right, Scott. Well,
some things to think about.
I think things to think about, and I think all we have time for today, but I don't know what else to say about the state of the world at this point, but maybe next week we'll have more tariffs, no tariffs, untariff. Who knows?
But I know that in 2 weeks, we'll have a new prime minister in Canada.
You will.
Not a new one necessarily, but a more permanent one.
Yeah, I find it interesting how that works in Canada, like, because we all of us on the outside assume Mark Carney is he's like your guy.
Yeah.
But you still have to vote, right? Like,
yeah, so I mean it's a different system obviously where we don't vote for the supreme leader. we vote for a representative in our riding, like our current area, right? And then one of those people can be selected to be the leader of the party.
Yeah. And
it happened that when the leader resigned, the party decides who gets to replace him, not the people. So he's temporarily there. Mark Carney is there till April 28th, and then there's an election. So we'll find out if he gets to stay or not.
Nice. I like the guy personally. So I mean,
he's pretty solid. I mean, doesn't have a lot of controversy around him. He's not a politician, so he slips up sometimes and doesn't answer things politically correctly. That could maybe hurt him, but I think people are kind of in a forgiving mood when he's got bigger things to worry about.
Yeah, definitely. He was doing like TV commercials with Mike Myers.
Oh yes, yeah.
Those are hilarious. If you haven't seen those, like, they are just a riot. I mean, I'm a big Mike Myers fan.
Yeah.
And
who's Canadian?
He's Canadian, but yeah, it's so funny because he's did this one, like the whole elbows up thing.
Yep.
And a lot of Americans and other people in the world are like, what the heck does that mean, elbows up? And they explain that in one of these videos.
And then they zoom out at the end and he's wearing a jersey that says
Never 51.
Never 51.
Yeah. It's hilarious.
Fun times, man.
Funny, but not funny. So with that, I think we'll let everybody go. But thanks everyone for listening. And until next time, stay safe, stay secure, and stay private.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for watching or listening this episode. Be sure to subscribe wherever you like to get your podcasts. Visit sharedsecurity.net for merch, previous episodes, and more. If you'd like to help support the podcast, join our Patreon to get ad-free episodes and many more exclusive supporter-only benefits. Visit sharedsecurity.net/supporter for more details.